Hey, before we dive into this week's episode, if you've been enjoying the show, I'd love your support. Take just 10 seconds to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps others discover the wisdom and inspiration that I share on the Pivot to Balance podcast. Let's build a community of balance seekers together. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to share the love. Now let's dive into the episode. Hello and welcome to the Pivot to Balance podcast. I'm your host, AK, and I hope you're doing well. In a world that pulls us in a million different directions and with a billion distractions, finding balance can feel like an ambiguous quest. Join me on this podcast as I try to navigate life's twists and turns with mindfulness, purpose, and grace. In each episode, we will dive into topics like self-care, personal growth, mindset shifts by sharing practical insights, stories, and maybe even interviews. Get ready to pivot, to recalibrate, and find your balance. Follow the Pivot to Balance podcast, and I will see you on the other side. Welcome back, everybody. In this episode, we're actually going to talk about something that's relevant for people like you and I who love taking on lots of different things and basically going on founder mode because that has been trending. But before we get into that, let me address something up front, right? I'm not a founder or a business owner. I don't have a startup. I am not managing a company. I don't have people working for me. Instead, I'm in this space where I'm learning and growing through all the projects I take on, and founder mode has been a big part of that learning. You've probably heard me talk about how I've struggled with the Pivot to Balance podcast in the past, even though I love doing it. And that's what the last few months have been all about for me, figuring out how to kind of embrace this intense focus that comes with the founder mode, but also learning to balance it with everything else in my life. Even if you're not someone that's like a founder, if you're working 9 to 5, but you just have like a lot of passion or a lot of different things happening in your life, this episode might be pretty useful for you. All right, but before that, what exactly is founder mode? I came across this concept while reading stories from founders at Y Combinator and other startup spaces. It's this mindset where you're deeply involved in every detail of your work, solving problems directly, and basically staying scrappy. It's the opposite of stepping back and delegating everything. But instead, you stay right in the thick of it, making sure every piece aligns with your vision. For actual founders, this means being hands-on with everything from customer feedback to product development. But for me, it's been more about applying that same energy to my personal projects, whether it's creating content, reaching out to people, or just learning new skills. And I'm using founder mode to push myself, but trust me, it's not easy. Here's the thing, founder mode can be both a game changer and a challenge. It's intense, and while it can drive a project forward, it can also be really hard to turn off. So when you're kind of deeply involved, it's easy to feel like you're carrying everything yourself. I read about how many founders feel pressure to switch from this hands-on approach to a more managerial role as their company grows, which means like they have to delegate tasks, but they feel like, no, but I should do this. Why should I give this to someone else? It's my vision. Why should they work, for this? Like, it's my vision. I'm the only person who will understand. And how that can feel like a betrayal of their original version or original vision. It's like they lose that closeness to the work that they're passionate about. Paul Graham said this, and even though I'm not running a company, I can relate to that feeling. And when I'm in this mode, it's kind of hard to take a step back and take a break. Even if you're doing 9 to 5 and you're really like passionate about a project you're working on, it can be incredibly difficult, right? Like to take a step back and be like, okay, let me just get a cup of coffee. It'd be fun to do that. I feel like there's always something more I could be doing. And I get caught up in the mindset that if I'm not constantly pushing, I'm somehow falling behind. So you know me, you know that I love reading about neuroscience, and I wanted to just kind of understand that. So let's take a quick detour into some brain science behind this because I was interested, and if you're interested, keep listening. So I learned that when we are in founder mode, our brains release a lot of dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter associated with rewards and motivation. So every time we solve a problem or hit a milestone, or even just check off a task, we get a dopamine boost, right? I think a lot of us already know this. It's like a little high that keeps us going. But the thing here is, while dopamine can keep us motivated, it can also make us feel like we always need to be doing more. It's why it's so hard to shut off at the end of the day. You become hooked onto the feeling of productivity. Right now, when I'm telling all of this, I sat at my desk at, I would say, probably 9 a.m. And I've been sitting at my desk. Yes, I walked to the kitchen to get breakfast, to get lunch, but I was still doing something, waiting for something to upload, waiting for something to download, waiting for something to just load. That was the only break I took. But I also read that our brains need downtime to work properly, right? There's something called the default mode network, which is a part of the brain that kicks in when we are resting or daydreaming. And it's super important for things like consolidating memories and making new connections. Do you know how your best ideas come in the shower or while you're driving or just when you're about to sleep? That's your brain working in the background, connecting the dots between everything you've been learning and thinking about. When we're constantly in go mode, our brains don't get the chance to recharge and make those connections. So taking breaks is not just like a luxury, it's a necessity, like breathing, like drinking water. It's like giving your brain time to process everything so you can come back with new ideas and a fresh perspective. So how do you balance that drive with taking care of yourself? Hey, if you listen to this podcast, I think you will also love my newsletter, Elevator Gazette. I talk a lot about elevating your professional and your personal lives. Make sure to subscribe to my newsletter. Go to anushakhannan.com/email list, and I'm sure you will love it. Join everyone who is like-minded. And now let's get into the episode. With founder mode and everything, here's what I've been working on these past few weeks. I would say like past few months, even after I moved to Boston. The first thing is I'm trying to set clear boundaries. When you're all in, it's important to take time for yourself. For me, that means setting limits on how late I work or sometimes sleeping in. You know, I used to tell you guys that I used to wake up at 4 a.m. I'm saying I used to wake up early because I am staying up late now, like at night. And I'm bound to wake up late if I am going to bed late, right? I try to give myself one day a week to completely unplug. It's not been that easy. I'm really trying. I'm trying not to listen to too much music as well. It's not easy, but it's kind of important for long-term sustainability. The second thing that I'm kind of doing is remember why I'm doing this. I keep reminding myself that I'm doing all of this to learn and grow, not because I have to. It's about experimenting, meeting new people, finding what truly excites me. And that mindset shift takes a lot of the pressure off and helps me stay focused on what's meaningful. Like I tell myself, you're not investing $1 million on this. This is not something that you have to do. It's something you get to do. You know, that thought process is something I'm reminding myself of. I acknowledge that it might not be the case for everybody. If you're doing 9 to 5, it's like you kind of have to do it. But you also need to find out why exactly are you working on that project? What is your why? Like you have to figure out what your why is there, regardless of whether you're investing money in it or not. The next thing is reflect on what's working. We all do so many things, but I think it's important to take a step back and ask yourself, like, am I still enjoying this? Is this pace sustainable? Because it helps me stay focused on what things truly matter, rather than just keeping busy for the sake of it. Like, that's not what I want to do. The first idea when I started my YouTube channel, if you're not subscribed, go down to Ramesh Khannan and subscribe. When I started the channel was, I wanted to do videos weekly once, but then I knew that that is not something I can actually do. Like with everything going on in my life right now, that is not something I can do. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to burn out. I like doing YouTube videos. I'm going to keep doing it, but the pace that I want to do is the pace that I want to do it at. And the last thing is something that everybody talks about, but I don't know, how often do we actually do it? We get so caught up in the grind, but I'm trying to pause and appreciate small victories. Like when someone tells me that this episode resonated with me, or when I finally nailed that new skill or learned something. Those moments, they help me keep going. So founder mode is a powerful way to kind of, put yourself, like just put your head down and keep working. But it's just as important to know when to hit pause. And if you're like me and love doing a lot of things, remember that it's okay to take a step back when you need to. It doesn't mean you're any less committed. In fact, it means you're smart enough to see the big picture and take care of yourself along the way. But yeah, I'd love to hear how you're managing your own version of founder mode. Are you all in on a project right now? How are you managing the intensity while taking care of yourself? Let me know. Also, I just opened a Twitter account, Elevator, so go follow me. I'll leave the link to that in the description. But yeah, let's keep the conversation going. Tweet, maybe tag that account on Twitter and tweet. I'd love to hear that. But yeah, now go grab a cup of lemon water. I really need a cup of warm water right now after all this yapping. So I'm going to go do that. But thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.